Daredevil, it was actually a pretty legit comic book until the Affleck attack happened. But the idea of blindness enhancing other senses is just fiction, isn't it? Hey gang, Trace here for D News. Thanks for tuning in. There's a common thing in superhero and fantasy media. If one sense is lost, the others get better to compensate. Do senses really do that though? The research says yes. The brain is a glutton for input, so if you restrict the input channels, it kind of freaks out. Sensory deprivation tanks are basically this in a nutshell. Research from the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease found when people were placed in a sensory deprivation room, the brain couldn't tell if the thoughts and images it was creating were inside the head or outside the body. When deprived of input, the volunteers would experience visual hallucinations, paranoia, and a depressed mood. All this with less than 15 minutes of being inside that room. So, if that's what happens with all the senses dulled, what about with just one? Studies have shown blind people experience a higher sound placement ability and increased sense of touch. This has to do with the brain literally reforming to take resources from the missing sense. A study in the Journal of Neuroscience used fMRIs to scan the brains of people who were born deaf. They found their senses of sight and touch were altered, and they found a boost in the understanding of bimodal stimuli. Bimodal stimuli boosts are commonly seen in those who are bilingual. They have a lot more crosstalk between their senses. This means that people who were born deaf literally see the world differently than a fully sensed person. Now, knowing all of that, does someone who becomes blind gain that sense power? A study that came out last week says for shizzle! Research published in the journal Neuron found that when fully sensed mice had blindness simulated for as little as 1 week, their hearing was boosted. The researchers said this has to do with how the senses work together. Kind of like in a movie or when you're watching a video, if what you're seeing doesn't match up to what you're hearing, you get kind of messed up in your brain. Your vision is supremely tied to what you're hearing. Their experiments also found that sight helps us hear softer sounds and have better pitch. Because of that, your sight can help work with your hearing to help discern talking or familiar music in a loud environment.
If you take what you're seeing away, however, your hearing has to do it alone. And it flips switches in your brain called thalamocortical inputs. This lets the auditory information borrow some of the processing power of the visual center.
It seems to me this is kind of just like what they talked about in the comic book. This is Daredevil's power. He's using his visual center to understand and perceive sound. This has been documented in others too. In real life, people who are blind yet can navigate unfamiliar rooms and even ride bikes. The switches they're talking about are normally not used in adults, but in a week of blindness, bam, switched. Very, very cool. They also found when they removed the blindness, the switches went back to normal. So it's reversible. Super cool. Would you go blind for a week? For science? Think of all the things you could hear. Come tell us down below. We read the comments and we would love to chat. Thanks for watching. See you later? No, hear you later.